Previously on TheSalawag's Why It's Great Gut Reaction.
What's that hand plane doing over there? It's not dusting any crops. Oh no! Nope.
You gotta refresh. I'm the Salawag and I'm ready to get ready to work. I work from home and I get it done. I got my snackies. I got my beer. I got my chaser. I got my boiled egg. Let's get work done. Aloha nerds and welcome back to the Salawag's Gut Reaction, where I watch things and react from the gut. My friend has recently got me into Workaholics. We are watching like 2 episodes a day. We're about halfway through season 2 and it's an awesome show. I have not been an Adam Devine fan. He's not that there's anything specific against him. I know I'd seen him in a couple things and it just didn't quite hit me. But here we are watching Workaholics and I get it. I feel like I get his sense of humor now. I'm like, oh, that's where you're coming from. That's your style. That's pretty damn good. I think all the guys, I don't know any of their names, but all the guys of Workaholics, the guy with the hair, I call him Chewbacca or Chubano, depending on my mood. I'm sorry, no offense, Blake Anderson. Oh, I do know your name because you were on Tiger Belly, and that was awesome. Uh, Bad past Bobby Lee. Bad. You've been a bad past Bobby Lee. But thank you for apologizing to Chewbacca. Literally, to me, I see that hair, and there's something about his look that I just think, you look like Chewbacca. Like if Chewbacca had hooked up with Princess Leia. You know, not a bad looking bloke, but you know what I mean? Like, I don't know, that hair makes you look like Chewbacca. And I just think, Chewbono. You're fantastic. And then the guy who plays Anders is also fantastic. Like, this is a trio of funny people. I love the boss. Her name is slipping on my mind. I just followed her on Instagram because I think it's a good gag, the hot angry boss, and she plays it well. But also, I do think there's something also kind of amusing about the way she's angry. There's just this sort of corporate bureaucratic anger that just it's amusing, for whatever reason. But also, just a few episodes ago, she lost her shit and started kicking one of their plants in the office space. For those who don't know, these three stoner drunks are the main characters of Workaholics, and they basically waste time. They don't work very hard. It's a telemarketing job, and they're constantly teetering between being fired or not. For those of you who haven't watched, and it's just an entertaining blast of such a stoner drinker, I don't care about anything lifestyle Americana. It's pure Americana of the lazy, technically white collar worker. Not really, but technically white collar worker. Um, because they all work in the office and clearly make enough to survive with their paychecks combined. And they're all roommates, and they're always getting into hijinks. The actress who plays Jillian, they're awkward coworkers. I know her from 22 Jump Street, where she was hilarious. And I know this show is probably about 10 years old, and I'm just getting into it because of my friend right now. But damn, it's so wild. I can't wait every day. I'm glad we pace ourselves because we're trying to be roommates right now due to personal stuff going on. But we're trying to become roommates, and we're in the process of that. So we're watching these roommates who are goofballs, and they remind me of us because we're friends for a long time when we were in college and we were messing around, partying and hanging out with everybody, and it's reminiscent. But we were also nerds, so I love from time to time this show makes nerdy references. Or in the previous episode, there was a doll who was supposed to be Sigourney Weaver. They referred to specifically from Aliens, so a little bit of that nerd culture is still being represented here. But I just wanted to shout out this show right up front. I think Workaholics is awesome. And if you are of that variety of person, if you're a bit of the stoner, a bit of the drinker, a bit of the goofball, nerd, and kind of tired of the work life, or just tired of life in general, I think Workaholics just represents that wild, what would you do, or what would these guys do? I love that from time to time they are shouted out as psychopaths. Like in another episode this season, the three guys are obsessed with a coworker, and there's a work uh, competition. Whoever makes the most sales in a day will get this refrigerator, and they try to get the refrigerator to impress the new coworker, and she is so creeped out by them. And, on one hand, it's a perfect commentary for something I know I've been guilty of, getting obsessed with a coworker, the pretty coworker who's friendly and nice. And you try to do things and whatever. And ultimately, at the end of the day, that's not the right call. I mean, some people date at work and it works out for them. But other times, things like this obsessive behavior, even Jillian, I love, gets mixed into it where she thinks she's found her soulmate friend. She's looking for a friend, and she takes a creepy picture of this coworker, and it's such hijinks like that. There's a lot of taboo hijinks in this show, but I like that sometimes it's a kind of a commentary, but really at the same time, the heart of the show is just being ridiculous. And there's another one where high schoolers, first these guys steal a dragon from the playground. This is all season two, and it's like a big wooden statue, and then these high schoolers steal it from them, and so they go to a high school looking for the guys who stole their dragon, and it's like, what? There's such crazy weird stuff in this show. It feels very much of the era of Tropic Thunder, that kind of raunchy, not politically correct sense of humor that we sorely miss, because although it is good to be sensitive and be concerned about other people's problems, sometimes it's also nice to just let loose and make fun of all the problems in the world and not really worry about it. Like another episode, I think, is still season one, where the boss's brother comes over, and I believe he's been in a couple other shows and movies, playing this sort of. I think he's got some kind of mental or physical situation going on. I don't know what it is, autistic or disabled or something. I don't know, but he's got a kind of quirk about him, which he plays up and or he plays against, which is great. It's a great sense of humor that he has, whatever the situation is. I don't care. I think he was in The Ringer, also playing in the Special Olympics. But this guy is actually hilarious because he plays so earnest and like in the particular episode he shows up, he acts like he works there and is almost diminutive, as if he's just doing his job and he's trying to collect money from the workers for some workplace situation. And it turns out he does not work there. He's just waiting for his sister to give him a ride somewhere, to give him a ride home. But he's quickly part of the boys because he's busted grifting on them. And they're like, "Oh, you're one of us," and it becomes a crazy episode. Chewbacca is a male stripper or something. But even that, all of that comes to play later in the episode. There's just lots of great stuff. Normally, I'm trying to nerd out and examine the filmmaking. What I love about this show is that I'm not doing any of that. It's so in it to win it with its sense of humor. I think all the guys are great. I guess I will check out Jexy now. I wasn't going to before, I'm sorry. But now I will, because I'm like, okay. And I apologize because this show triggers even my own not politically correct or not polite sense of humor. But I do feel like, particularly in this show, Adam Levine or Devine or whatever his name is, Adam, I'm glad his name is still named Adam in the show. But there's a few gags where I swear the way he looks, in my mind, he looks like the drawing of a person who looks like him. And when he makes these faces, like he tries to smolder eyes to seduce his boss, it's like, I'm a male model. And it's like when he does all that stuff, I swear, you look like a cartoon. You look like a cartoon, man. And I don't mean it as an insult. I mean it as the highest compliment because it plays so well on some of these faces you make. I'm like, wow. But that's to the benefit of the show, though. Comedy is about playing on the way that you look. It is about playing on what they call them in the show. Like, you look like a man baby. Comedy is addressing how you look and making a gag on it. Scary people like Danny Trejo in Bubble Boy is played as scary until you get to peel back the layers, and he's just this really emotional man who misses, the woman who left him, wildfire. Comedy is about playing both on and against your look, and I think this show does that to the T. Anders, who plays he's the most straight and narrow guy, ends up being the subject of like this creepy photographer's. I'm not gay, but you just look so amazing. Your muscle structure, and I'm just looking at it. No, he's not an unattractive guy, but he just looks like a normal guy to me. But this guy's like this creepy photographer in a mall is just like touching him all over and being so inappropriate. I'm like, this is inappropriate no matter what the gender orientation situation. Like, you are being so creepy on this guy. But stuff like that taboo sense of humor, like the way the photographer is not supposed to act with you. You know what I mean? Stuff like that, I just think it's great to watch a show that's just so no holds barred, having its own sense of humor. And it's a slightly taboo, which is it is the humor of me and my friends, the ones from college I got along with I call them Malaysian sensations because we would kind of party and have a sense of humor like that. We wouldn't be grotesquely bad, but we would have a dark sense of humor, and the show goes even further than we would ever go. But it's what we would joke about doing. Oh, if I worked in an office, I would totally build a pillow fort, and stuff like that. They all these goofy things that you would just do as a joke with your friends or your coworkers. They're doing in this show, and it's just a great time. It's a great time to have. But I'm only in about the second season. And again, I do love the boss, but I'm really hoping they do more with her. I think, man, there's a lot more there if we could just get there. But I've seen on her Instagram, apparently there's some episode coming ahead where uh, they're doing like a sci-fi thing, and everyone's in sci-fi get-ups across nerd culture. There's some Star Trek stuff. There's some. One of the guys is a Terminator. This guy named Waymond, who is like this older Asian gentleman. I don't know if he's Filipino or not, but he's always doing. He's just this. Every side character is just kind of a throwaway there for some immediate gag, but they're good gags. They're good joke gags. Like one guy ironing his clothes at work because the boss is out sick. I'm like, wow, that's a good one. Or another guy he's the married guy, and he's always talking about everything he's going to do to get his wife to give him some action. And of course, our main characters are these insecure, goofy, dork, nerd party guys. So that everything anyone says, they do have some kind of boyish, like, I could be that. Mm-hmm. I could totally do that, and I just saw Starbuck. Katie Sackhoff was in an episode, and dang, I feel so bad forgetting his name, but he was this actor who was in Lost and many other things. It was just in the episode we watched, playing a homeless man. Yeah, this show is good, and I'm hoping for more crazy cameos, but I also can't wait to see the boss as whatever this weird sci-fi character is she's playing that was posted on her Instagram. So wherever that is, I look forward to getting there. This is just a gut reaction, a pure gut reaction. I've got nothing nerdy to say. I just really enjoyed it and enjoy the fact that a show is willing to be taboo and crazy and wild. And I hope I didn't insult the actors by anything I said. And the worst being, oh, well, he's not an unattractive person. I hope you're not secretly thinking, why don't you call me handsome? I hope. No, if I didn't describe you enough and that's what offended you, I'm sorry. But seriously, I think they all have great character and play off perfectly off the character of how they appear. And I like that Chewbono. That's what I'm calling you, Blake. I'm sorry. But I like that he is playing like the innocent amongst the three, like the innocent child. So there is clear character between the three of them. And I think this is the worst thing in comedy or movies that are supposed to be comedy or movies or shows that are supposed to be funny. Is when even though it's a comedy and you can be taboo and you can do this, still you need distinct characters. Or at least if they're kind of the same character, there should be little ribbons of things about them that are slightly different. Except in the case of Beavis and Butthead and what's the other one? And Bill and Ted, where the gag is that they're actually the same person. It's just like they just happen to be identical types of people. So things like that I think is fun. And yeah, so that's all I can really say. I think Workaholics is fantastic. I'm sorry I didn't remember all the names of the cast, but dang, I love this cast. I think they're hilarious. I hope to see more of every single character as the show goes on and see them do weirder and wilder things. Finally, Waymond has gone from being sort of camera just turning to him to being the flip-off guy. And I'm like, okay, cool, all right, let's get more. Because it's just a show where everyone makes the scene better. So hats off to Workaholics. That's as far as I am so far. I hope you check it out and enjoy it. It's just a recommendation. Usually, gut reactions a recommendation. That's I'm trying not to be the angry nerd. I think there's enough of us angry nerds out there. I really don't think the anger is very productive, even if it's healthy to get out of your system. And I think sometimes you angry nerds are just doing it for the views, and I don't really like that. I think you calm down and you stop drinking a little beer, you might enjoy what you're watching. So, with that, does not apply to Disney Star Wars. So if you don't like Disney Star Wars, you're just being real, man. And thank you for speaking up for the fellow nerds. So that's what I got to say for this gut reaction. And oh no, I'm not. I'm catching up on myself. Because you know what? I have to tell you about another great thing I saw this summer. And it was Barbie. And I am Knuff. Oh no, it's a great movie. Great production design. I really liked it. That's all I have to say. Goodbye. Aloha. Yeah, don't like, don't subscribe, and don't comment. Am I talking about myself? That's up to you. Because you know what? I don't want you to just like and subscribe because I said so. Even on my favorite shows, I hate hearing that. I hate hearing it. I'm like, I'll like and subscribe if I want to, motherfucker. Okay? 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 I don't give a shit. I don't give a fuck. I'll like and subscribe if I want to, not because you asked me to. And if you're just doing it because they tell you to, that is good for their numbers and they deserve money. They're working hard for it. But I'm not here for that. I don't care. So if you like it, fantastic. And if you don't like it, fantastic. I'm not saying this is a great thing to watch. Sometimes I get nerdy and I'm glad to stand up for talking about the educational potential of a movie that I really love. Something that filmmakers could learn from. And other than that, I don't really care. Okay? That's just me. But Barbie, on the other hand, I mean, that was a fantastic movie. Like, that was really well put together. I don't really get all this negative talk about it's too much about feminism and all that. And let me go back to my angry nerd comment earlier. What I want to say is, look, you don't got to watch the thing. You don't have to watch it. You cannot watch it. I think most of you are angry because your money does depend on people watching your show. And that is the actual reason you're watching it, and that's why you're upset. Because now your job conflicts with your tastes. But if you don't want to watch it, don't watch it. If you don't want to talk about it, don't talk about it. And I know that you're not really sincerely doing it sometimes. And I don't appreciate that as a viewer of content. What I like about Kinda Funny and Comic Book Girl 19, the reason I refer to them the most, and definitely Black Nerd, if I'm in a mood, I'll watch the three of them because I know they're going to have a positive attitude about it. They understand that they have a choice in what they're watching, and they're not bumming me out. And I don't go to YouTube to get bummed out and angry. I'm sick of that. I'll do that plenty on my own. I go to YouTube to calm down, chill out, relax a bit. That's what I like. And maybe some people need that refreshing, red letter media angry at the prequels. Some people need that. They're angry about the prequels or whatever. But I just don't think that's healthy overall. I don't think it's good for people to be stuck on that all the time. I will be coming out with my own negative show soon. But in general, I just don't think that's good for you. I really don't think that is good for you as a person to be absorbing all that negativity all the time, even if it's something you agree with. It's healthy to be angry and all that. But I think, are you just wasting time because there's something that you don't want to do? Or are you just dealing with something that you just don't want to talk about? And it's okay to vent through a movie or whatever, but I just don't think that's healthy all the time. And believe me, I'm a fat man. I know about not being healthy. That's why on my own show, I'm promising you if it's a gut reaction, it's because I enjoy it and I think you might enjoy it. And if I'm nerding out, it's because I'm a filmmaker and I want other filmmakers to understand, hey, this is something you should aspire to. Here's why. If you don't agree with me, that's totally fine. I really don't want any negative comments or negative energy on this show or in the comment. I don't want arguments or whatever. I'm perfectly fine having no one watch me right now. That's totally cool. Because I know with popularity comes all of that baggage, and I just don't want that. I like the kind of funny energy. That's a positive place to be, and I kind of want to keep that vibe going on with that show. And to the extent of talking about Barbie, again, I'm not angry. I don't think it's bad cinema at all. I think it's actually what's fantastic about that movie is it reminded me of the experience of watching the Flintstones and uh, what else? There was a number of movies growing up, like the Flintstones or the Coneheads. I feel like I'm perfectly in another world while I'm there, and it's a comedy. It's light, and there is a feminist spin, but it's a woman making the movie. She has her point of view on the world. And if it's a bit feminist, that's okay. That's another point of view on the world. What do you think it's like for women to watch, so many decades of action heroes of men who are just muscly, tough, do the right thing, and they're just supposed to fall at their feet by the end of the movie? What do you think that's like as a cultural experience for women to only be the prize for you? Do you think that's something that they feel valued about? Or, oh, I'm just here to scream and, oh, fall into your arms. And when you angry nerds say she, you sound like a sexist pig. You sound like a sexist pig who just wants to see a muscly man have a woman fall into his arms. And that's fine if you want that. But hey, go watch Conan the Barbarian. That stuff is still out there, it's still available to you. They're not getting rid of it. I think it's perfectly fine for a woman to have her point of view and to express that through a film, as long as it's not in some kind of condescending way. And I don't feel like Barbie was like that. I honestly feel when Barbie begins and she is floating down from her house to her car, when she's taking a shower and there's no water, and and she's eating food and she's not actually eating. That's the experience of playing with the toy. And when the boys take over, that reminded me a lot of I would play with Barbies as a kid. And that reminded me of playing with Barbies with my sister because she wanted someone to play with. But then I also had, in my generation, it was Max Steel. I didn't have G.I. Joe. We had Max Steel, which was a computer animated show of a high school teenager who was also a spy. Also, the famous Jet Jackson did that and was a much better show, live action. R.I.P. That famous Jet Jackson. What a great actor! I wish was still around right now. Lee Thompson Young, because that was a really good show and he was great in it. But that we had Kim Possible. We had a lot of that kind of show. But Max Steel was the one that had Barbie-sized toys, and so I'd be like, man, I wish I had more toys to play with. There's really just these two guys. I mean, there was a couple of variations of them, but there's just these two guys, really. And I don't want to just have them fight. I want other characters. I want to have more story. I want to have an environment. And my sister had the little Barbie playhouse, and so me and my little sister were very close, and we would have a deal where for the first half an hour or so we play her game. So it's a romance game, or it's a we're just friends game where Barbie and Ken are just being friends and being friendly and hee 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 hee. And then, but just by about the time whenever she was done and ready, it was my time to take over the storytelling, and she would play with me, and like, oh, Max Steel has got to save Barbie because metal arm guys, and oh, Max Steel's the man, and he gets the girl, and that's what it's all about. Oh, that's what good storytelling. That's what men like that, boys like that. We're men. Okay, and that's where it would go, and very much that's what happens in this movie, where the guys take over and the Kens take over. Because what I love about the movie is there is a good story about Ken and all the Kens in Barbie Land, that they're really just as much an accessory to Barbie as all of the products that there is. Ken does not have his own vehicles, he does not have his own house, and that's okay because these are toys that are for girls. And so they don't need to have a world for the guy characters, just as much as when you buy Batman in the Batcave, are you getting a Catwoman lair or Catwoman's apartment? Are you getting Mr. Freeze gets a layer, but Catwoman doesn't. That means, what does that mean psychologically? On the boy side of collecting toys, is that it's about the guy, and you're in his universe, in his house, And even Poison Ivy, who's a main villain, doesn't get her own layer. So what does that say about the psychology going on in making toys for boys, and that girls can't have that too? I think that's it's just about being fair. And I'm sorry this is a hard transition for some of you macho nerds out there, but you're just being so much of a jock as any guy who bullied you when you were growing up. So I don't think you're really helping the conversation here. MCU, because She-Hulk sucks, the whole MCU sucks. I'm sorry. No, Hulk has not had a fair hand since Incredible Hulk, so I don't even know what you're talking about here. It's not like and he's complaining about the Marvel Cinematic Universe being bad. People were not happy in Phase 2, and people had mixed feelings about Phase 3 until Endgame and Infinity War turned people around. I don't know what you nerds are freaking out about all the time. Always this instant emotional anger. But the whole point of the product is to have confidence in yourself and to be respectful to other people. And you don't learn that lesson. All you care about is what upsets you about the movie. You don't actually pay attention to what the movie's about. I think it's very powerful, and I reflected a lot on this in a personal way. I have been Ken in my life, except I didn't work out and I didn't look particularly good. I was kind of the dumpy hobo Ken growing up. I didn't care how I looked. I was an artist. I didn't care about money. And that's just come to bite me in the ass when it comes to dating. Like, I don't even have money for dates. That's terrible. But also, I relate to so many times with girls. I've fallen for them before actually really getting to know them. And that's a big mistake. And that's also what Ken does, because Ken's the opposite. See, I think there's two kinds of, I mean, no, there's all kinds of people, but from what I've seen, there's really two kinds of guys. The guy who kind of does his own thing, and what happens happens, and the guy who does everything he can to make things happen. And I think that's just kind of a psychology of people. Like there's kind of a more diminutive type of people and more alpha kind of people. And here Ken is kind of living his entire life as this alpha, or trying to be an alpha that would attract Barbie, but she really doesn't care. And it doesn't matter to her that he is all worked out and everything. It doesn't matter. She still just sees him as a friend. And so all of his efforts to just be the perfect accessory have not worked out for him. But he gets to have this journey of saying, oh, in this other world, there are guys who are on top of everything and they have what they want. But it's not really that cut and dry. It's not really that cut and dry. There's so much more going on with every person than that. And it doesn't matter if they're a jock, they might be a jerk to their woman, and that's not something to aspire to. But that's what Ken comes back to in Barbie Land, and when he conquers and takes over. This is all spoilers, by the way. Yeah, I don't care. Spoilers, now I'm telling you. It's just a really good movie. Don't worry if I'm spoiling it. And when you watch the movie, you decide for yourself if you like it. But if you do like it, I agree, and I feel that I relate to Ken being willing to give up everything to impress Barbie and make her happy. And that's definitely something I've done with crush after crush, trying to change myself, trying to make myself more amenable. But at the end of the day, I just have to be myself, and if they don't want that, that's fine. And that's also the message of the movie. I think it's very fair to men, actually. Actually, the Ken in Barbie Land, they are the just regular guys. They're just regular guys. Some of them, and in this case, the regular guys who aren't getting any action, but they're just regular nice guys who are nerds. One guy's a movie nerd. Ken just likes horses, he finds out. They're just regular guys who just are insecure about themselves. They're the type of guy who does idolize the woman, and they're insecure about themselves. And if they get something great, but it's about fixation. They're fixated, and really they need to grow up and realize like that's not making you happy now, and it's not gonna make you happy if you think that's gonna win someone. And it's a balance, you try and you fail, that's fine. You gotta you don't need to conquer and become a totalitarian system, which ironically that's what the Barbie world is. But Ken's journey reflects that he just needs to Everything he's doing when he takes over Barbie Land, it's not fair to the Barbies. He has taken their power. This is their world, not his. But also, he is allowed to have his own fun and do his own thing in this world. But this is the way this world works, and there's nothing he can do about it. And mostly his problem is not even the world, it's that he just loves Barbie so much that he makes her his whole world. And she basically has to give him permission at the end. Hey, go make your own world. You don't have to make me. It's Barbie and it's Ken. Go make your own world. Be happy with yourself. And really, the unspoken word is the right person will want you for you, and you don't have to subjugate yourself for anybody. The whole song "Push" being part of it. That was a big song when I was growing up. Again, at the time of playing Barbies with my sister, the fact that they sing the song "Push," I want. The very first lyric of that song is, "I don't know if anyone's ever loved me, who's touched me." And so there's this great insecurity deeper within him than even this romance. It's this great insecurity about who he is supposed to be as a person. And that's what's really ruining him throughout this movie. So I love that that's the real darker heart of this movie. Barbie is going on a nice adventure, and Ken is just really going through a midlife crisis or a life crisis about figuring out what he wants to do with himself. And he just needs to let go of what he already knows he can't have. Barbie has been pretty clear overall that, but she could be clearer, and he too could just loosen up a little bit. And and conquering her world and stealing her house and saying I'm the man and puffing up my chest doesn't solve his problem. It just makes his problem worse and has negative consequences on him. So that's the whole that all of that. I think there's a lot of guy story here with Ken that I just relate to because I remember being younger, and I remember trying every iteration of appealing to someone else or making myself feel like I'm some special person, whether it's puffing up my chest and trying to conquer situations or whatever. And like mansplaining or whatever that people talk about, that stuff is real. You feel like you're supposed to be some kind of overbearing thing, and you become that, and then you see the consequences when you rub everyone the wrong way, and you've done the wrong thing, thinking you weren't trying to do the wrong thing. In your mind, you were trying to have some agency and make your you were trying to have some agency and say your piece and all this, but you went too far. And that's a part of being young. It's part of growing up. Some people learn it when they're older. And Ryan Gosling's definitely not a spring chicken anymore, but he's still young enough that this journey is so intense for him. And same with Barbie, that she's just going through this emotional change. I really appreciate that. But for me, I actually related a lot to Ken and that desperation. And I really also related to Alan, played by Michael Cera. I'm really glad. Fantastic casting. Greta Gerwig, what an amazing director. Like I'm saying, this movie did remind me of Flintstones and Jim Carrey's. I know it's Ron Howard's movie, but Jim Carrey's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. It reminded me so much of those experiences because only in a movie like that am I so in a world. I feel like I'm in a world down to the last detail. And I think movies today, I think the weakest filmmakers are ones who can't adapt to their budget and can't just say, hey, what our limitations are our limitations, but we still have to tell the story. And I think this movie is a movie that clearly has its big budget, but in its budget tells a story first. That's got to be the most important thing to you as a storyteller. Here I am finally nerding out because I am Knuff. But this movie commits to telling the story it wants to tell. And I really appreciate that it is story first. It is about the growth of the characters. And despite the feminist messaging that people might be offended by or feel is too much, I do think really there is a strong story for the men in this movie. and it's not. I don't feel that the movie says anything in particular is right or wrong. I think it just says like these are the worlds we live in, and we have to kind of work with it, and not necessarily that the man world truly is 100% run by men, because we do have successful women who are CEOs and things like that, and it's certainly the percentage is not equal, but it is a changing world that we live in. Hence, even the director of this movie being a woman, we are in a different world now, and we're making it that world. We're in the slow process of changing the social order, and but we are experiencing it. So this is a good thing. But and to that end, Barbie world and Barbie the movie, that is this director's world, the one she wanted to present. And now I will definitely check out your work, Greta Gerwig. I've heard your name, I've heard about your movies, I just haven't watched them yet. And I think you just had a great vision, and you really executed. And I've heard that there was a different version of the "I'm Just Ken" song. I don't. That's literally all I've heard, that there was a different version, but the composer and the writer of the song, I don't know. I don't know what the relationship was, but basically, one of the music talents of the movie came up with a song based on the script, and it was a joke. And the director, Greta, wisely picked this better joke over hers. That is good directing, okay? A bad director commits to a vision even when that vision, has a clear flaw in it. No, that's not necessarily true. How do I say it? The most important thing when you're directing is to know, if you hear a better idea, to go with it. It's not necessarily that you have to be, and every director may make their own movie. He, she, they, whatever. Every director should make their own movie, however they see it. That's the point of having, you are the audience saying, the movie should go this way, the movie should go that way. But, as opposed to George Lucas, I think if you don't like what he did in the prequels or whatever, I think if it comes to something as humongous as Star Wars, I think Disney Plus shows you that even if you may have found the prequels boring or bad or whatever, they were still telling a consistent story. You may not like the way it was told or whatever, but the core of the prequels is still part of the story of the original trilogy. And it's still telling the same story, but it's now giving you all the details that make the originals even more important. The prequels strengthen the originals whether you like them or not. Because everything that Anakin goes through, story-wise, it's a reflection of Luke, but it's also telling you why Luke's decisions are so good. Because when you have the ability to say, "Oh, this is what the Father did." So, but that being said, I feel that's one consideration of, okay, you may not have liked the director's work or something like that. But if you look at another movie, such as the Star Wars sequels, you see that there is no solid story being told. And you see each director really is making what they want to make. And that is the problem. You have to understand the special sauce that makes a movie. It does come down to a vision and a complete story. This is why I talk about the core idea so much, and the core idea of Star Wars, the core idea of Terminator, and now the core idea of Barbie. These core ideas that make up your story are what generate your execution. And so again, you may not have liked the politics in Star Wars, you may not have liked the feminism in Barbie, but to me, they are part of the nuance that make it a stronger piece, because it has more layers, something more to examine. And I don't think that it's a one-sided story at all. I feel like so much emotion comes out of Ryan Gosling's Ken, that clearly the men are not just being left behind in this movie. And for people sensitive to that, I'm a man, and this is what I saw, and I promptly disagree with that argument, because I feel like it's speaking to the type of person that I am. I think I've gone down the Ken path so many times, And it is also, I recognize for myself, there's a deep rooted insecurity that leads you down that path. And I am, look at me wearing this shirt. When I was in my 20s, I wouldn't wear nerdy shirts. I dressed like a hobo sometimes, but I would try so hard to pretend I wasn't a nerd. There was one girl in particular, I wanted so badly for her to think, well, I listen to rock music and I'm a cool guy. Puff up my chest. But when she came to see in reality that none of those things were actually who I was, and she was like, no, you're a nerd. Your room is filled with toys. Yeah, maybe you're hiding some toys, but you're a nerd. I'm a nerd. It's fine. And this is one of my early lessons in growing up is, you know, and the relationship was more complicated than that. But it was still an important lesson. I appreciate her being, for whatever craziness, madness life takes us through. I appreciate that she was there to teach me that lesson and to help me grow as a person. And that all my friends were nerds. I'm clearly a nerd. Just embrace who you are and find your own path. And so while I am still single right now, I've had, I'm just on the journey. Hopefully, I find someone at some point. Although I may be single, it's not the center of my happiness. I'm podcasting now. I think I've spent 10 years really being helpful to other people, making their dreams come true. And finally, this year, I've decided to commit to myself, making my podcast. It's not a great podcast. I don't really care if anyone thinks it is. I hope they do, but if you don't think it's great, I don't blame you. I just have this compulsion to do it, and I'm just trying to finally do what I enjoy doing. I enjoy talking to people about movies, having full discussions, and again, in my 20s, I would dominate and I would have to say, I'm right. You don't see what the movie is. I'm right. And now I step back and say, hey, you didn't like it? Let's just hear why. And that's okay, And I might still try to make a point, but I realize making the point is no longer the point. I'm just making my point to state my case. You don't like it, you still don't like it, my point's not strong enough. That's okay. Because you're going to like a movie that I don't like, and then I don't have to agree with anything you say. And that's fine. That's just fine. That to me is the lesson of Star Wars. Luke is single at the end of that movie, but he's found himself. He is someone who, when he was younger, in the first Star Wars, when he was younger, he grew up lost, not knowing about things, not knowing about his heritage, not knowing about his life, like Harry Potter. And mentors come in, and he finds himself. And because of his peaceful, good heart, he and yeah. Come on, kitty. Come on, kitty. Come on, kitty. Star Wars is about Luke finding himself and being comfortable with himself and trusting his own instincts. He does learn in the second movie that going off and doing what he wanted didn't work out. He did need to complete his training, but once he had completed his training, he found himself and he found where his confidence lied, and that is why in the third movie he is so resolute. He feels in his chest the force. He trusts the instincts that he was taught, and he trusts mostly himself. He trusts what he feels. And some people have terrible instincts, but his instincts were correct, and to fight for his father and all that stuff. That's family drama. In Barbie, there are no families, so the friendships are the families. And some people have that, and it's unfortunate if they don't have families, but some people are fortunate to have families of friends who look out for them, and that's a really beautiful thing too. But even in those situations, whether you have the family or not, you may still be looking for yourself. So I had a family, and I was still looking for myself as a young person, and I appreciate the honesty and the earnesty of Ken's journey, that he should learn that you don't need to puff up your chest and dominate other people. That's not even how you do things. That's not true to yourself. Because you see when Barbie shows up at his house, he's so emotional. And when he's conquered Barbie land and almost turned it into Ken land, and he's taken over her house and he's proud of his mini fridge. And, but despite all of that and despite having ownership of all the Barbies, what was true about him was still true. that as soon as our main girl Margot Robbie Barbie showed up, and Margot Robbie, by the way, is so perfect for this role, so exquisitely perfect for Barbie. And then for the first time, I saw, oh, she is also a perfect Harley Quinn. I did not like the movies she was in as Harley Quinn. I felt like every single one of them got her character wrong. Even James Gunn got her character wrong. I really feel she was the most like Harley Quinn in The Birds of Prey, where she was producing, and a little bit the most in James Gunn, but at the same time, I feel like the true Harley Quinn was created in the cartoon, and she's a character who participates in Joker's malevolence, but she herself is more just having fun. In her mind, hurting people is fun, but she's nowhere near malevolent as Joker. And she can be a hero. She is more complicated, but at the same time, she, much like how the Joker represents, I think the Joker represents adult twisted fun, the cruelty of adults and how adults can see cruelty as fun. I think Harley Quinn represents how children see fun. You know, that slapstick, that Looney Tunes, that's her heart. She's more of a slapstick than a brutal, violent person. I mean, she is a brutal, violent person, but that's her tone, that's her heart. I just feel like none of the directors understood that in any of the movies, and first they try to make her sexy, too sexy. I think it's not that I don't want to see attractive women look like that, but I don't want to see Harley Quinn look like that. I'm like, that's not her heart. Yeah, I mean, sometimes she'll be sexy, but it's a sometimes thing. She's covered up for a reason. She's all about the Joker. The Joker gets to have her. And she's fun. She's sweet and she's fun, even though she's awful. These character traits are so key, but I do feel like when it comes to Barbie, I saw Margot Robbie in a different light. Cause I'm like, oh, you are Barbie. Of course, we all loved her from Wolf of Wall Street and all that stuff like that, but to see her play this character, I thought, you you truly are this character. You fit it so perfectly. Right from the beginning, I loved that 2001 opening, which I guess was in the trailer too. But I do have a complaint about two edits of this movie, two choices, but that's a conversation for later. But I just feel like overall, Barbie had heart. She had her own journey. And to me, it's no different than if we're supposed to be leveling the playing field, then we have to be comfortable with movies without romance plots. And we've started to have now movies with male leads where there's no romance plot with a woman, because again, that is just so, she's just your accessory to in this movie. Sometimes movies do feel dragged down by the romance plot that's so unrelated. Like The Hobbit: Desolation of Smaug has this unnecessary romantic entanglement between Tariel and that one guy. I'm sorry, but you're that one guy. I know who Bilbo is. I can't name any of the dwarves. But that unnecessary romance just sticks out like a sore thumb. The dialogue is not as good as the rest of the dialogue of the movie because it doesn't exist in the text. And it was even a complaint of Evangeline Lilly, like, do not give me a love triangle, please. And the studio demanded it, and thus it's in the movie. But it lengthens the movie unnecessarily. I thought you were trying to get more views in the theater, not less. So you're still making these movies longer than they have to be because you're obsessed with numbers. It's a numerology obsession more so than even money. It's like, oh, it has to be 3 hours, like the other one was 3 hours. That's come on. The Hobbit should have been 2 movies. It really should have. And anyway, all that being said, you see these way choices are made, and movies tend to be better when the vision of the filmmaker is fully executed. There can be input from the studio, all that stuff, but if you look at the difference in quality of remakes, let's say if we look at The Fly with Jeff Goldblum, or if you look at Invasion of the Body Snatchers with Jeff Goldblum and Donald Sutherland. These are remakes where the filmmaker wanted to make that film. They had a vision and they came to the studio at a time when people didn't want to make remakes. They wanted to make the remake. And you see what happens is once we reach corporate America in the 2000s, the business people now in charge think, oh, remakes do well. No. How many movies have you guys remade that just did tanked? And you keep doing it and you keep doing it. You've remade Spider Man twice, three times practically. And and look what it did. You know, all you did was weaken the value of the IP, and you didn't bring in the money. You also brought in critical confusion about your product. You know, you're not really thinking of what the product is and how it works. You're just seeing the numbers of remake do well. But it's really about the vision of the filmmaker. It's about the story. Stories are what get people. But you look at the success of Barbie, the success of Oppenheimer. The Barbenheimer movement was hilarious. I'm glad that whoever came up with that, was it Bob in marketing or is it Trisha? I don't know. Someone came up with that. Was it a from the ground thing? I don't know. I don't think so. Probably not. But both movies were fantastic, and I think Barbie is emblematic of, to me, what a blockbuster Hollywood film should be. You have fantastic production design. Really, someone else in a review said the production design was the star of the movie, and they're not wrong. But to me, in a movie like this, if the production design is the star of the movie, the director is the star of the movie. The director is the one. Again, the core idea generates the execution. So, as a piece of direction, Greta Gerwig wanted this throwback 50s movie set quality. And I love that it wasn't generic, it was pure character to the Barbie. I do think when people do throwbacks, it sometimes comes off as generic to me, maybe because I just don't know what they're throwing back to. But I think in this case, I didn't even know she was doing a 50s era throwback, and I just saw that in an interview. And it made so much sense as to what she was going for, that kind of old school Hollywood studio movie. And it comes off to people as, oh, it's just funny colors in a movie set, but there's more to filmmaking than that. It's not just the fact that it has color and saturation. It's not the fact that it's based on a toy. You know, that did not help the movie Battleship, okay? It did not help Battleship at all. So let's stop thinking these poor thoughts. There was a good story and good heart, and it really had emotional character value out of it. And that's what makes Barbie strong. And all the rest is decoration. But it all comes from the core idea of wanting to tell a good story about one character who doesn't want to be a toy anymore. She truly wants to succeed as much as she possibly can. And another character who has grown up with this obsession and fixation, and he just needs to let it go and live his own life. And then he will achieve his happiness. And it's not a romance story at all. It's truly about who are we supposed to be? Who are we truly? And, you know, let Barbie have its world, man. Come on, you know. You got the real world to be a dominant man, so just let Barbie have her world and be the dominant one there. Very much like if my sister is done playing with the Max Steels, hey, these are her toys. Okay, I'm done. I'm sorry, I'm not taking over your world anymore. You go play with your Barbies, and I'll play with Max Steel on the bed or my bed or whatever the hell. I think eventually we had separate beds. So yeah, and to just be okay with that. And, not everything needs to be a hill that you have to die on. That is not masculine, and that's not necessary as an adult. So I think the strength of Barbie is absolutely in that. So yeah, that's what I got to say. I wish I had purchased the movie toys. I did see a Ken. It just didn't really look like Ryan Gosling, and then also Barbie wasn't there. So I was like, I'm not getting Ken by himself. Hence the complaints of the characters in the movie. But yeah, so really loved Barbie. Love Workaholics. I think one you can bring your kids to, and the other is the bedtime for the kids. Okay, yeah, that's what I say. So also, my friend showed me the movie Mannequin, which is a perfect precursor to Barbie. So I'm just going to do a quickie review on this. Mannequin Had Kim Cattrall, and I forget the main actor's name. I'm very sorry. I'm throwing your name away. But Mannequin is very much a precursor to Barbie. We got this sort of creative, zany guy who keeps losing jobs because he can't make a pizza without putting a smiley face on it with pepperoni and things that aren't even supposed to go on the pizza, like celery or whatever. He just can't help himself. Every job he goes to, his creativity abounds beyond a necessity for the job, and he gets fired. But then he saves a woman from a horrible accident in front of a clothing store, department store, and ends up getting himself a job decorating the windows. And while he's decorating one of these windows, not knowing really what to do, one of the mannequins comes to life, and it's Kim Cattrall, and she only comes to life when he's the only one looking at her. So there's a lot of potential to play with, the joke of him being crazy. They don't play enough with it. The movie actually just goes along with it and says, "No, this is real and it's fine." Very old school kind of way of making things. It's fun. It's a really fun movie, and what's beautiful is that at the end of the movie, she wishes she could. It's a love story between a man and the mannequin he's dressing, and it's bizarre. It's zany. It's literally a live action cartoon, and that's why I love it. Again, going back to Star Wars, Star Wars is a live action cartoon, whether it's the originals or the prequels. It's a cartoon. It's a cartoon presentation of some very serious ideas, but in the guise of these wild, zany characters who don't exist in real life. And the droids are basically the animated characters in a Warner Brothers cartoon, where they can keep getting destroyed in some way or another, but they just come back to life because you repair them. If you think about it that way, then Jar Jar Binks is really not that much of a stretch. I mean, you got to give Jar Jar Binks a break. Yes, he's an annoying character, but he's a cartoon character. It's because Star Wars is a cartoon, and you just have to stop thinking of it as Rogue One, because it's not Rogue One, it's a cartoon. Oh my God, get over it. It's a freaking cartoon from the beginning. You idolized it because you were 10 years old and you thought it was very serious, but it's not that serious. It's pretty light. You know, goddamn, give George Lucas a break, man. Shit, the rest of us have put up with the sequels and Disney Plus, so give George Lucas a break. God, I don't know what's more offensive, the fans to George Lucas or Disney Plus to Star Wars. I really am not sure. One of these is more offensive than the other, and I'm leaning toward the white slavers. Anyway, I'm sorry. There goes another directing job. I'll never be a director in this town. Anyway, Barbie's great, Mannequin's great. Live again, these kind of are live action cartoons, and again, even Workaholics, which started this video, even Workaholics, I would say it's a live action cartoon. It's just people acting in a way that's so ridiculous and unnecessary. This is the fun of being an adult, is that your inner child is still there. And sometimes that inner child is also an adult child, a man child, and is like, what if I built a fort in my office space and had a party at night at work while everyone else is at home? It's just so ridiculous. And Barbie too. It's a live action cartoon. There's no the world has rules that don't make sense to the real world, and the characters are not like relatable or human. Will Ferrell and the board riding on a 20-person bike to go to Barbie Land. You know what I mean? Where's the real world in this? It's not really there. It's a movie. It's a cartoon. It's for fun. And to me, Barbie, Workaholics, Mannequin, all of these things have that spirit in common. The difference is that Barbie and Star Wars have such cool, good cinematography and production value that you have to kind of take it a little bit seriously. But at the same time, they're live action cartoons. They're here to ignite our spirit of fun and our childhood spirit of who we are on the inside, and remind us to be that, to just be true to ourselves and what we want. Which is again what Barbie's going through herself. At the end, she wants to be real. And I love, there's a scene I really love where she sees an old lady, and you kind of feel like it could be her, and like in the future or something. And that's exactly what she's thinking, because she calls the old lady beautiful. And the old lady has a line I think is a little too long. She says, "I know it." I think she should have just "I know" maybe would have been better. I don't know. This is not one of the edits I'm complaining about, but yeah, I just thought that was really beautiful because it shows what Barbie's really thinking about in her heart. She's thinking about death. And at first we think that's scary, and that's what Barbie Land reacts to when she just blurts it out. And I relate to being that person too, blurting out the wrong thing during a party and stopping the whole party. I've totally done, but more like the Adam Sandler way in Big Daddy. I'm just, God, I've been such an embarrassment at times. But Barbie does that here in this movie too. Again, it's a character trait. She's going through something, and it's creating these blurts and spasms out of her. And she's going through a journey where she's going to realize what she wants in her life, and it's to be human. And I thought that's a nice little story. It's like the Pinocchio story, but for chicks. That's fine. That's cool. I really thought Barbie was a really good movie, and again, mostly a lot of it was just I really felt like I was in that world, and it brought me back to being a kid again. And again, on the Ken side, I just related to Ken, and that "I'm Just Ken" song. I've been listening to these Barbie songs almost nonstop since watching the movie. I saw it like maybe a month and a half, 2 months ago, and every day I'm listening to Ryan Gosling's "Push," or "I'm Just Ken," or what was I made for? I even made a spoof, "What Was I Built For?" a Terminator parody. That's going to be my honest karaoke. It's my first honest karaoke. I made a spoof of that. It's not a great video, but it's my first attempt at something I've been cooking up for a while. And it's been a long time since I've been that hooked into a soundtrack. I think this movie affects people, and some people hate it. But you know what? Some people also hate the original Star Wars. So who exactly is supposed to be the meter of what is good taste? More important, we have good values, and I think that's what all of these movies are really about: is having good values. I think that's what we need to start paying attention to when it comes to these movies. I know you don't want to. You don't want to think about what's this movie really about. And I'm not saying the feminism. What's this movie really about? It's about Ken and all the Kens getting over their baggage, getting over their obsessions, and figuring out who they are for themselves. It's about the Barbies figuring out what they want. And mostly in the case of the main Barbie, she wants to diverge. Everyone else just wants the world as it is. They love it, it's good for them. But Barbie wants to do something different. Ken doesn't want to do something different. He just wants to accept himself. He wants to go back to the beach and beach. But Barbie is the main character. She wants to travel into space. She wants to go to the next level. Hence, again, the beginning of the movie, when we start out with the old versions of dolls and the new versions of dolls, and the concept that a doll itself might want to be alive. Okay, it's not. Again, it's female Pinocchio. And that's fine. Also, if you talk about Pinocchio, Guillermo del Toro's Pinocchio is fantastic. I didn't review it because I suck, and I didn't do it. But it's a fantastic movie. But that being the subtext here, it's really nice. So anyway, I'm just gonna start repeating myself if I haven't already. Barbie's fantastic. If you have a chance to catch it in theaters, I recommend it. And remember, when you're watching movies, it's not all about you, and at the same time, it's completely about you. Your reflection on the movie, but it's not all about I want this movie to be a certain way. The movie might be trying to reach to you in a different method than you're thinking about. Again, Star Wars is about personal growth, not being emotional and reacting to everything like freaking out all the time. That's what Anakin did. Luke learned that's not how to behave, and he learned to trust himself and have self-control and self-discipline. In the case of Ken, he learns to like himself. In the case of Barbie, she learns what she actually wants for herself. All of these movies are really about self-discovery and where we relate to our world. Ken rejoins his Ken community. Barbie leaves her Barbie community. So each one has a different thing. Luke restores his religion and restores his father to being a good man again. You know, the sins of the father visited the son, but the son found a way to bring forgiveness and life back into his bloodline. That's beautiful. That's a beautiful story if you heard it as a Japanese revenge story, and really it's about restoring honor to the family, something like that. All of these things, there's a through line about family, honor, and self growth. And all of these things are tied to each other. And that's what these movies are actually about. Not about the rest, not about the packaging. The packaging is there to enthrall you, to entertain you, to give you a new sense of where you are in the world, but it's really about what's inside the package. It's what's inside the box. And Barbie didn't want to go back in the box again, and neither do I. So, that being said, I'm just Ken. Anywhere else I'd be a 10. Oh, wait. Yeah, I'm a 10, God damn it. I'm a plus size 10, and if you don't believe it, you're just not cool like I am. Yeah. I'm a 10 on the inside. Shimmy, shimmy. Oh, sorry. All right, go watch it. Goodbye.